Hello, welcome once again to It's a Frankly Hairy podcast. I'm your host, Frank Weber. So glad, as always, for you to join me here in the forest for some deep and enlightening talk today about society and culture and where we're headed and why a lot of these topics are never talked about. And sometimes I have personal experiences, sometimes I take them from the news, sometimes I just observe them around me as well a lot of times. It's crazy how that works, and I'm getting older and observing a lot more and trying to make sense of the world, and it seems like it makes even less and less sense to old age and supposedly the wisdom that I have. But there's a couple of different things I could talk about today. One of them I wanted to get into here real quick, and I can't remember if I've probably talked to some degree about this before, but we seem to be living in a world where it's difficult to find good and adequate help that you need. Yes, in fact, I'm pretty certain that I've talked about this before in some context, but like, for example, those of you who have been listening throughout 2025 know that I've had a lot of household issues or house issues and trying to get things repaired and dealing with contractors, and it hasn't been completely a great experience. One or two of them have been fine and really helpful, but then others not as much, and looks like we finally got the house pretty much where it needs to be after the water damage early in the year and then the hailstorm in June and all that. And so we get that all out of the way, and now, of course, there's some other problems, and like I don't know, I don't want to get into a great deal of detail on this, but like my wife likes to put these extenders on the sprinklers in her garden areas and stuff, and those things always wind up breaking off after a while because of the up and down weather and going up and down through the ground as they do. So I'm always having to use unused sprinkler heads or buy sprinkler heads and cannibalize the inner parts in order to put the new parts in there and everything. It's very frustrating. I know it sounds painful to hear me describe it. And then last week, I after letting it sit idle for about 3 months, I decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and fill up my spa and get some use out of it again, since it's getting cooler, supposed to be getting cooler. I don't know if it ever really truly is. Been kind of a weird month here in November. But I like using the spa. I use it naked. I think that's the way you should, everybody should use it, and it's relaxing. But, a lot of times in the summertime, it would get really warm, and I would be like, I'd get kind of tired of using it, and I'm like, I don't really necessarily want to go from hot air to hot water. And so I gave it a break for the last few months, and I there's also some question about its future if we wind up moving, and I don't know who would move it for us. I'm not sure the regular movers can do that, and it's kind of a great distance, so I don't know if we may wind up selling it with a house and what have you. So I just gave it a break for 3 months, and so I decided to fill it up and put chemicals in it, and then when I get it started up again, there's like a flow error, right? And I don't really know what's happened and everything, and the guys that we bought it from, they seem like they're mostly pretty good guys, especially the ones who actually work on the spas. But then sometimes the guys behind the counters, I'm not quite as sure about. And I think I bought it 5 years, got it 5 years ago, right about this time. So the manufacturer's warranty has basically just expired. And of course, I've got this problem, and I'm not really exactly sure what it is. But after researching YouTube and everything, I think it's probably an air lock or an air blockage, which is sometimes easy to remove if you know some tricks and everything, it sounds like, but I don't know. I may wind up having to drain it out and refill it the way that they teach you here. But anyway, I called this guy yesterday. I'm not going to tell you the name of the guy or the place or anything, but I called this guy yesterday, and I don't know if I mean, I like to give details out which may make this show tedious for some people, I guess, but I like to give details out because I think it helps us make more sense of the world and helps us put things together. But maybe that's also a weakness of mine. And then the other thing but then I don't ask as many questions as maybe I should. And I don't think a lot of people ask as many questions as they should. That's why we don't live in quite the same curious society as maybe we once did. And anyway, I tell this guy what happened, and he's like, "Oh, you can't leave the spa empty for that long because there's still water in the system, and if it freezes, your pipes will break, and then that can be a really expensive fix." And I mentioned that the spa is no longer under warranty, but of course, telling him this, he's like, "Well, that warranty doesn't cover stuff like that," It's probably what he implied, but anyway, I filled it up with water the other day. It doesn't leak, and I have seen it leak before, so it's probably not a frozen or busted pipe. And it's weird that he tells me this, because you hear about all this damned if you do and damned if you don't stuff, because if you fill up the spa like I did the other day, even if you treat the water, you can't just leave it there without turning it on, because eventually the chemicals will degrade and it'll get smelly. But then if you get another freeze with it being full like that, that could be even worse for your pipes. So what am I supposed to do besides punt on that, right? But anyway, he kind of gives me a lecture about that, and then it says, well, it could be, your filters or whatever. When I did that, it's not the filters. And based on everything I see now, it's got to be like just an air blockage, which I guess I don't know how to get into the cabinet. There's a trick to doing that, but I may just have to drain it myself and refill it and see what happens. It's very time consuming. And well, I'm about 95% sure that's the problem. I'm not 100% sure. And then you get into other issues here. But anyway, it's if you don't have a spa out there, it can be quite a hassle. Even when it was under warranty, it wound up getting some problems every now and then, and a lot of it, I think, was related to expansion and contraction and these crazy temperatures we have for a good part of the year. But anyway, I just kind of felt disappointed. We don't. We're supposed to have like a society where we kind of help each other, and I know obviously we can provide a service and do that as a business, but like I just feel like, because I was telling him about the filters, and my filters aren't that young, and he was kind of trying to sell me some filters at the same time, and obviously he wants to make a sale on that and everything, but I kind of wish like people could get beyond just like, if you're in business, you have to provide good customer service, which I wasn't sure that I had yesterday when I called him, and I'm not sure if I had ever talked to this guy before or not. But I don't know, I kind of wish people were not just more cooperative with each other, but we could kind of get behind each other's projects a little bit more. Like I was thinking a lot the last couple of days, and I have a lot going on, in my life now with school and the weather and, Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up. I just don't feel real good and everything, but the most successful people in life, even if it's it doesn't have to be some kind of service call like I was talking about, but the most successful people in life have had good people around them to, kind of strengthen them and encourage them and support their dreams, and I know some people like that. They're definitely out there, and they've helped me along as well over the years, even when things were difficult, and I very much love them and appreciate them for that. But they seem to be the exception rather than the rule, and in our society, and I'm not really sure what to make of it. Like I said on this show before, even when it comes to goals and dreams, you can be pretty lonely in that, and I wish there was something else. People could, just instead of being jealous and pretending like we're competing with each other and competing on the freeways for how fast we can get to work and get to the next thing before we rush through that and get to the next thing and that sort of thing, that we can just, slow down and, like I was talking about last week, be more curious for folks and try to support them as much as we can. I know not everybody's going to match our values and what have you, but things really do kind of seem to be disappearing in this world as I get older, and I don't really recognize it very much anymore. When you get the opportunity to help people, whether it's volunteering or doing a service for a profit, just try to, see if you can help them the best you can without necessarily diagnosing their problem over the phone. I know it's weird in my spa situation because I may, in fact, not need a service call, but now I'm not really sure which way to go. So anyway, it's just really frustrating, and I hope you catch my drift on that. I don't know, it's just been a strange couple of days, strange few weeks, and the whole year this year, quite frankly. And anyway, I hope you found some value in that and everything. By the way, I did, during some of this saga yesterday, actually after the phone call, I went down to Walmart and bought a plunger to use in one area of the spa that I'd seen on a YouTube video, hoping that would work. Dedicated to the spa, by the way, not, we have plungers here for other reasons, of course. But, and that didn't work. Apparently, when it gets air caught in there, it can get caught in the motor itself, and draining it and refilling it is probably the easiest thing to do, but it's kind of time consuming. So I don't know. We'll see about that. I'll keep you posted on it. But anyway, that's kind of how my week started, and still dealing with some trouble in school, or it's not really trouble, but I have some concerns about some things, and sometimes whether I really want to continue on or not. It's just weird times right now, and that, and some other things. So anyway, just appreciate it if you keep me in your thoughts and prayers, and I'd love to hear a message from you. Love to hear from you sometime. I don't really hear from anybody out there, and what have you. But anyway, when I'm thinking about this disappearing society, and I don't want to give like a ton of examples of this, but those of you who know me, commenting on sports, and particularly specific teams or games or whatever, is not necessarily the best way to go for a kind of general variety podcast like I have here. But I got to thinking about a lot of things in the world of sports that are behind the scenes that I'm not sure if people actually know about, or if they know about them, do they really understand them or appreciate them? Like, there was a lot, when I was growing up in the 80s, and I guess even some extent the 90s, there was a lot of things were different about the general sports world, and especially about the behind the scenes stuff now. So I'm not really talking about salary caps or which they didn't really have, any of the leagues really didn't have until about the 90s, and now baseball is apparently wanting to get one, and I'm sure there's a lot of discussions about that, and there's also, of course, lots of discussions in college sports about name, image, likeness, and the transfer portal, and how they have not only are they getting paid now, but they have a de facto system of free agency. Actually, I talked about both of those things before on the show, but I always wonder about other things like behind-the-scenes stuff. Do you really need to have fancy athletic complexes, practice facilities, training complexes? Do you need to have stadiums that are fancy or look fancy? And other things like why have they created a market for expensive end zone seats when sitting in the end zone used to suck and be kind of shitty? I mean, that's where we sat a lot of times when Dad took us to games when we were kids. Not that I don't appreciate the time with him or anything like that, but that's usually where we sat. And I got to this one thing that's been going on for a little while now. I don't know exactly when it changed, but there was I got wind, I think sometime in the 2000s, I got wind that, do you know, I'll just ask you a question here. Do you know where the home team for college and pro sports, do you know where they stay the night before? And this is not really meant to be a trick question, but this could be, I wonder about this thing because it's sort of another one of those priority and balance things in society. Now, of course, the visiting team stays in a hotel, right? Well, the home teams in college and the NFL also now stay at a hotel, usually like a high-end hotel in their hometown. And why is that? Because that used to not be the case. In college, apparently, they used to sequester them at the athletic dorms the night before a game, and certainly save them a lot of money doing that. And then the pro one is a little bit more bizarre because those guys are professionals, and do they necessarily need to be sequestered? And I'll give you a case in point here. There's a video that came across on my YouTube feed that I watched a couple of years ago with Hall of Fame quarterback Terry Bradshaw from the Steelers. So if my friend Jessica Lewis is out there listening, I'm mentioning her favorite player from the Steelers. There was a video of him, this is just showing you how it used to be, but there was a video of him driving up to Three Rivers Stadium, I guess for some game, probably in the 70s, and maybe during their heyday there. And he's just driving this modest little pickup truck by himself, presumably coming from home, slept in his own bed the night before, going to the player interest at the game. He's on a first-name basis with the police officer there, whose name happened to be Franco, which is kind of like me, Frank, And they're saying, yeah, good luck today, Terry, and all that, and just a really nice, cordial exchange there. I don't think any of that happens anymore. And it seems like, and you would expect it from the NFL teams because they're professionals and they should be able to sleep in their own home the night before and then drive themselves to the game. But apparently that doesn't happen anymore in football, and I guess it happens in the other sports, though, because they play more games. But I don't know. I look at situations like that, and, spending money on hotels for the entire team, especially when you're at home, seems like a real waste of money, and kind of like me having to drain my spa and refill it would be a waste of water from the other day. But it says something about just priorities and balance and where we are in society, and I don't know where it's going. I don't know where that society went, like even from the 70s, where Terry Bradshaw can drive in his little pickup to the game and, be friendly with everybody and, accessible in some sense. But we don't have that anymore. And there's so many things that are going on that isolate us, and I even get a little depressed sometimes. This business operations class that I'm taking right now, it's a good class, good to know. It's a lot of, computer type study. I mean, it's not technical or anything, but it's crazy how the world of business has changed because of all the changes in computer technology over the years and how all that works. But I don't know. I kind of feel like computers are separating us a lot too, and I can't get my head around it. And so anyway, hope you're enjoying the show so far. There is one other thing that I wanted to comment on, and I'll try not to get too deep and try to make sense of it, but I think it's been about 2 weeks ago now. We've talked about Sydney Sweeney on this show, and I've also talked about Megyn Kelly, and I think both of them are great. Both of them are gorgeous, and appreciate both of them for their different contributions to society, especially in recent years. And apparently Megyn was kind of riffing on Sydney about this kind of see-through dress that she was wearing a couple of weeks ago at some gala or award show or something. I don't know what it was, but there was like it was kind of a see-through gray dress, and you could see Sydney's breasts through them. But the thing is, Sydney has done nude scenes in movies before, and anyway, Megyn kind of got on Sydney for, kind of being a very nice down-home kind of girl. Seems to be kind of traditionally minded from what we've seen in recent years and interviews and things of that nature. And she kind of got on her for wearing this dress. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I have to weigh in my own 2 cents here. But Megyn has kind of this very, she wears kind of interesting outfits sometimes too. The traditionalists would kind of say such. Although I don't mind. She can wear whatever she wants to. And the same is true though for Sydney, in my opinion. And I don't know, there's a lot of weird things. The biggest thing that I would say is that clothing, especially certain types of clothing, especially the see-through variety, is all about getting attention. And it's not particularly, I guess in the traditional sense, it's not particularly modest, but I think this is where guys like me who support, naturism and nudism and things like that would tell you that, while we certainly, clothing is part of society and modesty is a part of our society, that there's another way of doing life where clothing and other pretenses aren't part of the game. And anyway, I'm just trying to say that it's hard to find a real balance there, and one side doesn't exactly understand the other, and vice versa. And everything is also context-based. So I don't really like to hear, I guess the biggest thing I would tell you is that I don't really like to hear criticisms of other people's looks or their clothing, because it's kind of body judgmental, and there's a lot of people in society that have a lot of body image problems. They don't. There's not as much body acceptance as maybe there should be, and that's why I support naturism, to promote that body acceptance. So anyway, I didn't want to get into a huge philosophy about that, but I had to throw my 2 cents or 3 cents or whatever, half a penny in on why I felt the way that I do about that story. And I typically agree with Megyn, but not always. And I didn't in this case, but otherwise, both Megyn and Sydney are great, and great to have them in our world and our society. And I would hope one day that maybe this podcast could evolve enough if I had a little bit more time and wherewithal, and maybe even some help out there that didn't cost me too much and could get me some results. I think I would love to have them on the show. That's what I'm trying to say, and not just them, but many other people, and trying very hard to work toward that. So, well, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap the show up here for this week, and I hope you got a lot out of it. I sometimes worry that I ramble on, or maybe don't make enough sense out there to really pull people in and keep them long enough on this show, but I have to talk about things. I have to get some things out there, and hope that people listen and get something out of it, and perhaps are motivated and become enthusiastic about making our world a better place to live. To keep what I feel like is kind of a decline in society and culture in a lot of ways, and some of those things maybe have always been there, like prudishness and always preaching about modesty, but we can change the world for the better, and I hope you would join with me in that. And anyway, so as always, I tell you to share this show with whoever you run into. Hit the subscribe button. Love to hear your comments, your thoughts. Even a direct message or two would be nice. No bots, of course, please. And we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. See you again next week. This is your host, Frank Weber, of It's a Frankly Hairy Podcast, signing off from the forest. Love you. See you next time. Bye.